Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. If you haven't joined the Pear Deck yet and you didn't catch how to do it, my colleague will be moderating the chat and you can drop your question there. If for any reason you get disconnected from the presentation, the join code will stay up here in the upper right-hand corner. So feel free to jump back in. If you are not able to look at two um, two displays at once or two windows at once, go ahead and keep an eye on the Zoom screen. But if you are able to have two windows open, I'd encourage you to open the Pear Deck and have both windows where you can see. My screen that is shared will mirror what is on your Pear Deck screen as well. So either way, you'll be able to follow along. So let's go ahead and get started. Just to make sure you're in the right place, we are going to cover celebrating year's end with Pear Deck. We're going to learn how to make a digital yearbook using some Pear Deck templates. Before we get too far into it, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Risa Bennet. I am the Program Manager for Education and Outreach here at Pear Deck. You can connect with me elsewhere at Twitter at Risa Pear Deck. I would love for you to give me a follow. If you like something that you see on this webinar, feel free to tweet at me and tweet at Pear Deck as well. I'm not totally sure how familiar everyone here is with Pear Deck, so I want to just do a really quick run through of how we're creating Pear Deck presentations. If you're completely new to Pear Deck, what I'm about to show you is going to go very quickly, and I highly recommend, if you want the backstory on how Pear Deck works and what it is designed for, we have regular webinars we're offering more than ever now with our continuous learning structure. Head to peardeck.com/learn-pear-deck. I think my colleague will drop that link in the chat as well. If you need more on how to get started with Pear Deck, we offer some background and beginner webinars for that. But just to be sure you understand how Pear Deck works, I'm going to show you quickly how easy it is to get started transforming your Google Slides into interactive Pear Deck slides. So if you want to look at my shared screen for just a moment, I'm actually going to go into Google Slides and show you how to get started. What you see on my shared Zoom screen right now is a plain old Google Slides presentation. It should look very familiar if you're a Google Slides user. I do want to note that Pear Deck is compatible with PowerPoint Online as well, but for the purposes of being succinct, we're going to focus today on how to do this with Google Slides. You can transform any lesson into a Pear Deck lesson inside of Google Slides by installing the add-on. So when you are inside of Google Slides, if you haven't already installed the Pear Deck add-on, just go here to the add-ons menu at the top of the screen. You can click on Get Add-ons. And hopefully Pear Deck is right at the top for you like it is here for me. Of course, it won't say installed. It would say I would want to click on it and get or install here. And once I have done so, when I go back to my add-ons menu, I will see Pear Deck for Google Slides add-on. I can open that very easily by clicking Open Pear Deck add-on. And now you'll see in the right side of my screen the Pear Deck sidebar. The slides that you're looking at here are plain old Google Slides. They are not interactive, but with a simple click of a button, I can turn any of these slides into interactive slides. So let's say that I wanted to turn this slide into a question. Right now it's a statement, but if I wanted someone to engage with my Pear Deck, I might change this to, what year did the Bolshevik Revolution begin? And now I can add interactivity. I can make this a text slide just by clicking this icon right here. And now you see that my slide has been transformed. Here it has a prompt for the students to write their response. And again, it notes it in the presenter or in the notes as well, but this is a Pear Deck text slide. I can transform any of my slides into any of these interactive question types that you see here. We have text, multiple choice, number, embed a website, drawing, or draggable slides. Today, you're mostly going to see us use the drawing slides, but we will make reference to the text slides as well. Once you've transformed your deck into the interactive presentation that you want it to be, all you have to do is go over again to the sidebar and click Start Lesson. When you click Start Lesson, you will actually see the same join experience that you saw over here. It will automatically generate this join experience, prompting the students to go to joinpd.com. It'll have a random 5-letter code like you see here. And you'll also see that there are different ways to invite your students to join. You can push the invitation to a roster in Google Classroom, or you could grab the link here and drop it in your LMS or in an email, however you want to communicate with your students. But again, once you've created your Pear Deck here and click on the green Start Lesson button, it'll generate this join experience. Now, I know that was a super fast overview. Again, I'm sort of operating under the assumption that you maybe know a little bit about Pear Deck. If I am wrong, I do encourage you to join a more remedial webinar at a different time. But hang with me here. I think you'll see how fun and easy it is to create a yearbook experience with Pear Deck. We're going to keep moving. So whether you're looking at my screen or at your browser screen, it does not matter. Our views will be the exact same. So let's join in and create a virtual yearbook with Pear Deck. I'm going to show you today 2 ways that you can execute this lesson. And the first one is celebrating synchronously. So I'll show you how to build your yearbook, and then I'll explain how to celebrate the yearbook submissions with your class. Your very first step is to add the Pear Deck yearbook templates to your drive. You'll see on your shared screen, if you're looking at your browser screen here, you'll notice that on the right side of your screen is a landing page, and you will see a blue button that says Add to Drive. You can add these templates to your Google Drive at any time, and then open them in Google Slides when you're ready to create your yearbook. If you're not ready to add these slides to Drive now, that is okay. As long as you've joined the Pear Deck session, at the end of this webinar, you'll get an email, and it will share all of the slides and the links included in this presentation today. So no pressure to install these right now, but that is your first step to getting these templates. All templates from Pear Deck are completely editable. Every element of them is editable. And you need to know that because when you make your yearbook, you're going to need to be comfortable editing the different fields. Again, this is just a template. You'll want to clone the slides, as many students as you have in your class. You'll want to edit them to each student's name and then customize the questions or the prompts based on the age group that you're working with. So here's what I mean by that. One of the template slides looks like this. And as I said, you can actually edit all of the elements of a template from Pear Deck. You would want to replace this image with an image of your student. You would also, of course, want to edit this image or this text, the student's name. I see that a lot of you are elementary school or primary teachers, so senior quote wouldn't really be appropriate, so you would probably want to edit senior quote to something else. Perhaps this is their favorite memory from class this year. Maybe this is what their favorite subject was to study. Maybe this is something like their favorite summer food or activity. Anything like that. Again, every field here is completely customizable. Again, if you're not teaching seniors, you might not want plans after graduation. I suggest for this field, maybe updating it to something like summer plans. You'll notice, and I've noticed some of you are engaging with it, this is great. This template is currently a drawing slide. And so if you wanted students to either draw or they can also stamp the text into the white fields, that would be fine. But you can also edit the type of slide and turn it into, say, a text slide if you wanted to, and have students respond that way if you wanted to copy and paste their responses. But again, just to recap, You want to clone this for every single student, and you can update their photo, their name, and what you want them to submit about their information. It is truly that easy. And again, you can decide if you want a different kind of interactivity as well. That can all be edited as I showed you from that sidebar. The second template that you'll receive if you add the templates to your drive is a leave a message template. So this is like the part where kids are signing the yearbook. Again, you would want to clone this template for every single student and make sure each student has their name on a slide like this. This is also a drawing slide, and you'll see in a moment why keeping it a drawing slide is so fun. You can add text or you can draw on a drawing slide, and I'll show a few screenshots in a moment of just how fun it is to be able to let students draw there. So again, to recap, you would want to clone all of the slides so that each student has their own. This is something you would obviously have to capture their photos ahead of time, whether you have them submit that or whether you have access to the school pictures somewhere in your SIS, will be up to you. I also want to remind you that you want to be aware of whether or not parents signed off on a photo release. I know every school is different, so just make sure you're aware as you're capturing images that you have permission from the students' parents to reshare those. Okay, so you have added the templates, you have cloned and edited the slides to be customized to your class roster. Now it's time to have students fill in their information for this. So this part of it, I highly recommend going into student pace mode so that students can fill in the answers at their own pace. You may introduce the activity ahead of time and then go ahead and launch it one of two ways. So you can, right now we're in presenter mode. And that means that every time that I change the slide, your view changes with me. But one of the beautiful things about Pear Deck is you can also change it to student pace mode. And when we put it in student pace mode, students can toggle through the slides at their own pace and respond to the prompts at their own pace. For the portion where you have students fill in their profile slide and write their signatures or notes on the signature slide, I highly recommend allowing time asynchronously for this activity so as to give everybody time to think. You can launch straight to student paced. I showed you over here that when you start the lesson, you actually choose whether to go into student paced or whether to go to an instructor paced activity. Oops, I did not mean to change that slide. You can also change to student pace after you've launched to an instructor-paced activity if you wanted to give these instructions verbally and then go ahead and turn students loose on student-paced. That's an option as well. If you decide to do it straight to student-paced, I highly recommend having some detailed instructions here. We went ahead and created an instruction slide for you to include in the activity in case you just want students to follow the directions. So to recap, the goal for students is to go to their individual profile slide. That's the one with the image and the name. And each student will go to their own profile slide to put their favorite quote, if that's what you choose, and their plans for graduation, or whatever you customize those fields to be. You'll want to emphasize to them that they are only to fill out their own profile slide. They do not need to fill out a profile slide for any of their classmates. If they do go rogue, there are ways for you to hide that so that it doesn't show, but again, just want to give some clear instructions here. The second part of the instructions is that they should go through the rest of the slides on the signature slides and leave notes, pictures, messages, encouragement for their classmates. Again, just like signing a paper yearbook. The culmination of this activity, if you want to do it synchronously, is to, once everybody's completed the activity, maybe give them a few days. Then bring it back to instructor pace mode for when you meet, not in person, but online in a video conference setting. And then you can actually follow these instructions and show off everybody's slides and all their notes to the whole class, depending on how much time you have. So using your video conference platform, you would share your projector view window to the class, just like I'm doing right now. Pear Deck has the student view. If you join the Pear Deck on your own, you're looking at the student view. We also have the projector view, which is what you're looking at here on my shared screen. And then with Pear Deck Premium, you also have the teacher dashboard. Again, if you're new to Pear Deck and you're not familiar with the 3 views, you may want to check out some other webinars to make sure that you understand the 3 views. But again, what you're looking at on my shared screen is the projector view. So what you would want to do next is project each student's profile image and invite that student to unmute themselves and share their quote and share their plans or whatever customized fields you have, and work through the class, letting them share their individual slide with everyone else. Then move on to the message slides. In this way, you can either show the responses in a list view or a grid view, which I'll show you screenshots of in just a moment. Again, you can share those responses. They'll be anonymous. And I highly recommend you just call on random students to read the greetings and messages of different that have been shared from different students. I don't recommend that you call on the person who wrote the message, just because that can be vulnerable and sometimes kids get a little embarrassed. Just repeat this for the messages for each student. If you have a very large class and you don't have time to share all of them, you might go through the responses ahead of time and star some of the best ones to share with the class. Now, all of that can go pretty quickly. I went through that very quickly. This can potentially take a long time, and maybe you want to create some sort of keepsake or artifact to remember these moments. I have 2 suggestions for how to keep a permanent record of the virtual yearbook that you've just created. The first one is to actually capture everything as a video. You can do this a couple ways, but you want to make sure you still follow the same instructions in terms of creating the slides and letting students respond to the slides. However, if you're going to do a live session, I highly recommend recording that. You can do that on just about any video conference platform, and then you can either share the link or the file to that video. You can share it in Google Drive, or you could even upload it to a video hosting site like Vimeo. Just make sure to put a password on it, of course, to protect your students' privacy, and then don't forget to share that password with your students. If you have some video editing skills, you can trim the sections for each student and share them individually, or you could even put a little bit of music over top of it. Totally depends on you. At the most basic, if you're a person who's like, I don't have video editing skills, that is okay. Just go ahead and record the session from end to end and share that recording with students. Another way to create a keepsake of the yearbook, and it takes a little bit more time, but it also captures everything in images, is to start capturing screenshots of responses. So you'll see some examples here of students who have left messages for their classmates. What you would do is simply screenshot the responses from your teacher dashboard or the projector view. Make sure you grab screenshots of every single profile slide and every single message for the individual student. And then for each individual student, I recommend pulling those screenshots into a Google Doc and creating a Google Doc for each student. So you would include, again, all of the students' profile slides on the Google Doc from every single student. And then for the individual student, capture all the messages directed to that student and add them to the doc that way. And then just name it that student's name, yearbook, something really simple like that. If this is going to be time crunch, then you can also skip the individual screenshots, and we also have a way to look at the grid view. So what you were looking at here, these individual images, that's from the list view. You can also grab the grid view like you're seeing here. It's a little bit harder to see, but it is a more efficient way for you to capture those images. And again, just drop this screenshot into a Google Doc. I know that was a super fast overview. I want to go ahead and open it up to some questions. If you have questions, why don't you take a few moments to drop them in the chat. Or if you would like, I can also add a text slide here. So you can either drop your questions in the chat, or on your screen right now, you should see a text response slide from Pear Deck. Feel free to drop some of those questions in there. We have just about 5 minutes remaining, so please feel free to direct any questions to me. And while you're typing your questions, I do want to remind you that I know that we went through this very quickly. After the session, you will receive a Google Doc. It'll have all of these slides included in it with the instructions, and any links that I included above will also be included in that Google Doc. So once I've ended the Pear Deck session, if you had joined as a student, you'll receive that recap. Of course, we'll be sending you a follow-up email as well after the session by tomorrow. I'm not seeing any questions, but again, if you do have any, I'll be here for a few more minutes. I'd be happy to respond to any of them. As a reminder too, if you are more of a beginner at Pear Deck and you need a little bit of remediation before you jump straight to the yearbook process, we did drop the link for more webinars here into the chat as well. So be sure to check that out. All right, I see a note in there that says you're a beginner. I'm really glad you joined us. I hope you don't feel too overwhelmed. Just make sure you check out the link, the peardeck.com/learn-pear-deck for a full list of our available webinars. We certainly want to make sure you have a good foundation for this. So someone here asked, can Pear Deck be used as part of a virtual graduation? Yeah, I would think so. Depending on how you're hosting the graduation. As you saw, the bones of Pear Deck are that we make your slide presentations interactive. So if you were wanting to use it to present and maybe capture people's congratulations, you can do that way. Again, at its core, Pear Deck is an interactive presentation tool. So if that's an element you would want in your virtual graduation, then yes, Pear Deck can be used that way. Any other questions for me? All right, well, I appreciate all of you being here with me today. If you leave the session and realize that you have more questions, you can always contact us at help@peardeck.com. We have a great team there ready to support you whatever you need. I do have one person here saying they have a generic Pear Deck question. Feel free to drop that. I'll stay on and answer it if you would like. So someone asked here, how can I see students' names when they're on Pear Deck if I use the link? So once students join, you can see their names on the teacher dashboard. I'll go ahead and open up a new tab here to show you what the teacher dashboard looks like. If you're looking at my shared window here, you can access the teacher dashboard anywhere as long as you have a browser by going to peardeck.com/dash. And just make sure you connect your dashboard to the same account that you logged in with. So in a moment, you'll see on my screen, let me scroll up. Oh, hi there. So this is helpful. Somebody's typing a question and you can see it on my screen here. So on my teacher view, I can see the person's name and their response coming in real time. I can see all my students who have joined by clicking up here in my student roster. And you'll see these are all the people that joined my lesson today. Even if they just pop in for a moment in Student Paste, you'll know that they were there. Like I can see here, this person joined but is now offline. And once a student joins, you can see this, no matter how you share the link. It doesn't, and again, you said if I copy and paste the link into Google Meet or if I share it, it does not matter. You will always be able to see who joined that way. And Yvette here wants to know how you end a student pace session. So if you want to end the session permanently, you would do that the same as any Pear Deck presentation here in the bottom right by clicking end. But if I go to if I have student pace turned on and I want to leave the session open, but I don't want to be in the window anymore, then it would give me the option to leave session here in the bottom right. So it just depends what you're wanting to do. So you can always leave the session open for as long as you need for students to participate without ending it. But when you're ready to end it, you'll just click here on the end. I have someone asking, where do I sign up for the webinar? And thank you very much, Danielle. She just dropped the link in there in the chat for you again. All right, we are 1 minute over. I just want to thank you again for joining our webinar today. Again, you'll get a recap email on this very shortly. If you want an intro to Pear Deck webinar, that link is in the chat. You want to maybe copy and paste that real quick. And again, if you need more assistance, you can always email us at help@peardeck.com. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful rest of your week.